Get inspired, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Life Inspired. If you've never seen this show before, this is all about how and why people are following Jesus. Typically, it comes in the form of a turning point. Usually somebody's story is life was kind of just going along and then God stepped in, ... and turned them to a new direction. And so you can watch this show on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and we do ask you subscribe, please, or on our Facebook page, and we ask you to like that, or you can go to lifeinspiredshow.com, and those are ways that you can share the story so that you can share the story to people that need to hear. Everybody's story is different. We talk about retinal scans and fingerprints, but a lot are similar to others. So if this story today resonates with someone that you know and you want to share it to them, we'd love for you to do that as well. And our guest today, socially distanced because COVID, right, is still a thing and increasing and whatever. Tori Yoder, I love you. I am so excited for you to virtually be on the red couch. I wish you were on the red couch and we could hold hands, but I'm glad that you're in front of your computer screen and we can chat with you. So
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here with you. Love you right back.
Yep. So tell us, I have basically 3 questions I typically ask, what was life like before this ... moment in your life? What was the ... and then God moment? And then what, how's your life inspired now? So give us the backstory part.
Sure. I think like many people, we all have lots of ... moments in our lives, right?
Sure.
So I was raised in a home that wasn't a Christian home. My first exposures to Jesus would have been through VBS in the summer. I was the oldest of 4 kids. And so every summer, my parents, my mom specifically, would take us and drop us off for VBS. It was free babysitting, if we're just being honest, right?
Absolutely.
So I would go, and I still remember some of those stories, some of those songs, even some of the sign language that went with the songs all these years later. So not knowing that that was a moment, those were when seeds were starting to be planted in me. And just as a little side note to those that serve faithfully and never see your seeds, be encouraged, because those seeds are being scattered. And as much as we want to see that fruit, sometimes that's not in God's plan. So I couldn't tell you a single name of any of those people who poured into me all those years ago, but those seeds stuck. And so life was going along. I was a normal kid. I wasn't a partier. I wasn't, any of those things. I was really heavy into music and show choir and things like that. In my junior year of high school, I started dating my dance partner from show choir. And that's my husband, Kevin. We've been together since high school.
Yay.
And Kevin was raised in a Christian home. And his parents actually had some doubts about me with the whole, she's not, equally yoked. But instead of rejecting me, they welcomed me and they started taking me to church with them. So about a year later, was baptized, publicly proclaimed my faith, and just couldn't get enough of Jesus. So that was my initial intro to faith. So as I've progressed through my faith life, I think like a lot of people, as I started getting to know Jesus more and wanting to learn God's voice and what does this loving Father look like, I just wanted more knowledge. I was in the Bible, in discipleship programs, learning. And then I thought I knew everything, right? I think we all go through that cycle of, I know everything now, which obviously we don't, and I didn't, and still don't. But I think my first major ... moment in my faith came as a young mom. We had been married about 4 years. We had our first child, and my dad had been ill most of the high school years into my early married years.
Wow.
He basically had everything but cancer. And so we had our first child, and my dad had fallen and broken his hip and was put in a nursing home for rehabilitation because our home with mom had stairs. And so then he had to go into the hospital, and my mom had just been caring for him for a really long time. And it was spring break time, and my youngest brother, they were going to go to Florida to visit aunts and uncles that lived down there. And I told my mom, you go ahead and go. Dad's doing well. He's just recovering. I've got a little 10-month-old. We'll visit him regularly. And it ended up my dad coded when he was in the hospital and got the call that we needed to get there right away. So the interesting part about that, if you can call it interesting, is he had a DNR. He should not have been resuscitated, but they did. So got other grandma and grandpa to watch the little one, and my husband drove me there. And on the way there, he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "He's gone. I just feel it. He's gone." And we got there, and he was hooked up to life, saving methods. Our pastor at the time met us there. And he said to me while we were in there, he knew my mom was gone. And he's like, "We need to get you home so you can rest. Your mom's got to turn around and drive all the way back from Florida. You need to go home and get rest so you can be strong for her to make this decision that's going to have to be made tomorrow about your dad." And I'm a wreck. I'm a daddy's girl. And he said to me, "I want you to sing 'Jesus Loves You' to your dad." And my dad didn't know Jesus, and I was a wreck, a blubbering mess. But I did it. I held his hand, and I just knew he wasn't there. But I sang it to him. And so went home to try to get some rest. And the next morning, I got up really early, called the hospital, and they said, "You need to come. He's awake and he's responding." And I was like, "What?" And at that point, he was responding just with hand signals until they took the breathing tube out. But when I got there and I walked in his room, he looked at me and he said, "You sang to me." And it was one of the most, I don't know, surreal, life-changing things. I never witnessed my dad accept Jesus. But what that did for my faith was amazing. He ended up passing a few months later, and I had such peace when he passed. And again, I never witnessed anything, but it was just those moments. So that was huge. And that same pastor really poured into me the power of prayer. As we continued to progress in our marriage and having more kids, we had bumpy, rocky times. And I just really clung to prayer and praying these radical prayers, not name it and claim it type of things, but just really praying for things to happen, and believing in God's timing that they would or they could if they were in his will. And things did. And I really believe that I can sit here today and say I've been married to the same man for 25 years, and we've been together for 30 since high school. We have 4 amazing kids because of that power of God's prayer, and not just mine, of a community of people who have surrounded us and walked with us and walked through gross stuff.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I did not know that about your dad.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know that you're a major prayer warrior, and we've been blessed to pray together, and also for each other. We've prayed together at times, and you've been able to text me sometimes, and I've been able to pray for you, and I know you've prayed for us before. And there's just nothing like knowing your Father in heaven is listening, and knowing that his will is perfect, and thanking him for whatever his answer is going to be, whether he answers our requests positively or negatively, knowing that his plan is best for us. There's nothing like it. And you're right about the peace. It's just so peace-filling. Absolutely. Can you I know a recent prayer in the last couple of years, I don't remember how long you've been at Clay now, but we knew each other before you were at Remax 100, but then we knew you at Remax 100 and we were there, and God moved you away from there to Clay United Methodist Church. And I know that was a little bit of a turning thing. Can you tell us a little bit about God's hand in that story too?
Yeah, sure. Like Diane said, I worked at Remax 100. I loved my job. More importantly, I loved the people. I still do love the people. I miss them.
And they love
miss
you, and they miss you. I know.
But working there, I was happy, and it was flexible with my kids and things like that. It was just really a perfect working environment for me. And an opening came up at Clay Church for a director of family ministries. And I had seen the post because I'm involved with Clay through musical mission tour. So I had just randomly seen the post and just like, well, whatever. And then I got a text and a phone call from some people here, starting to ask and encourage to consider it and to pray about it. And that pursuit started to happen, and not necessarily a pursuit from people as much as from God. And I just really kept asking, why would I do this? And, I'm happy where I am and I love these people. And what do I do? And ministry is hard. Ministry is hard, no matter if you're a paid person in ministry, if you're a volunteer in ministry. Stepping into ministry puts a target on you. It puts a target on your family, on your relationships.
Right.
It's just such a overwhelming privilege and responsibility. And just through prayer with friends and myself and talking with my family, even my kids were like, Mom, this is what you need to do. And it was so hard. I mean, I cried telling Remix 100. I was just bawling. But I knew that this was where God was calling me. And in the midst of COVID, everything had just shut down. And here I'm called into a position that's so reliant on people, and you can't gather with people. So it's been a challenge, but a good challenge. It's made me be super creative, think outside the box, and really focus on people and relationships. And I mean, Diane, you know me, that's so much who I am. So it's been a blessing to be able to like kind of hit the pause button, if you will, and focus on relationships and focus on what being the church means, and that it's so much more than four walls of a building. And how do we get our minds to think outside of those four wall box that we put it in so much?
Right. Right. Well, I love that God put you there before COVID because you are so, number one, in tune with Him, and number two, creative. And when they needed someone creative to keep things going in that ministry, God gave them you. I just love that He did that for Clay, because they
Oh,
love
thank
God and
you.
they're serving really well over there. Love the people there. Love Brian Durand and everybody. So yeah. So thank you
Yeah,
for sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
absolutely.
For those of you who, yeah, if those of you have never heard of Musical Mission Tour, this is something that they do at Clay United Methodist Church every, I guess, kind of you start in April with auditions and whatnot, right?
Right. Usually around the spring break time of the school calendar when auditions are. And then we start rehearsals, and then we perform locally, usually the second week of June or so. And then we travel on the road, usually around the Father's Day time that week, typically out east. And we finish in New York City, with the mission of performing and loving on marginalized adults and kids that don't have the privilege to see live theater. And then, of course, building relationships and pouring into our local kids who participate in the program.
Yeah, it's so great. I just love the program, and my daughter Billy and I got to go for one of your years. It was just an
Yeah,
amazing program. So, and gosh, Sarah Farron started that. I don't know how many years ago. So
she
we
sure
love her
did.
for
Yeah,
doing that.
this year would have been the 20th year. But thanks COVID. But yeah, 20th year of MMT being around. And Sarah Bartlett, Farron,
Wow.
who started it, she's out in New Jersey now, and doing more wonderful things with
Yeah,
students and kids out there. So yeah, it's a program that
that's
the
awesome.
ripples of it you just see and hear about, which is a really cool thing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for that. So if you guys are interested in things, what's going on at Clay Church or what's going on with Musical Mission Tour, and you want to, or you just want to hear about what's it like to pray, and you'd like to, either have virtual coffee with Tori or, masked coffee at Starbucks or whatever, I know Tori would meet with you, right, dear?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so just, yeah, message us here and we'll put you in touch. And if you know somebody else who has a story to tell, we want to tell more stories. So if you know somebody that needs to tell their story, let us know that. And you can reach us on the YouTube channel or the Facebook page or Inspired Homes and lifeinspiredshow.com. Sorry about that. Lifeinspiredshow.com. And you can message us in any of those places, and we'll get you hooked up with Tori or hooked up with being a guest on the couch. Thank you guys for watching, and y'all have a great week. Bye-bye.